On the 19th of December 2017, the title of our episode, Politically Motivated Cyber Attacks. We'll separate this out from the cyber attacks that are done purely for monetary gain and in the field of ransomware. We are basing this on the let's see, it's the, make sure we get the name right here, the WannaCry malware, which was a ransomware attack. The Wall Street Journal, a right-wing publication, has put in an editorial today, and we'll use it as a linchpin, and we'll finish up explaining this using, let's see, what is it, the cyber, make sure we get this right here, the cyber brief, we'll use it. Anyway, the official North Korea is behind the WannaCry, the massive cyber attack, cost billions of dollars and put lives at risk. Pyongyang will be held accountable. Well, there are a lot of things that Pyongyang, the Democratic Republic of Korea, Rocket Man, now known as Little Rocket Man, are being held accountable, including perhaps a third world war. Cybersecurity isn't easy, but simple principles will apply. Accountability is one of the corporations. Another is one, and the corporations another. They are the cornerstones of security and reliance in any society. In furtherance of both, and after careful investigation, the U.S. today publicly attributed massive WannaCry cyber attack to the Democratic Republic of Korea. The attack spread indiscriminately across the world in May. It encrypted and rendered useless hundreds of thousands of computers in medical centers, schools, businesses, and homes. And you notice how they listed those. Homes were last because they are places of the general public, but they did list medical centers and schools, and primarily was businesses, not as many medical centers. Ping did not unlock their computers. It was cowardly, costly, and careless. The attack was widespread, cost billions, and the Democratic Republic of Korea is directly responsible. We did not make the allegation, this allegation lightly. It is based on evidence. We are not alone with our findings. Either our other governments and private companies agree. The United Kingdom attributed the attack to the Democratic Republic of Korea. Microsoft traced the attack to cyber affiliates of the Korean government. The consequences and repercussions of WannaCry were beyond economic. The malicious software hit computers in the UK's healthcare system sector particularly hard, compromising the system that performs critical work. These disruptions put lives at risk. The world is increasingly interconnected with new technologies, devices, networks, and systems creating a great convenience. Unfortunately, that provides bad actors opportunity to create a mayhem with the hope of anonymity and relying on the complex world of ones and zeros. That's code he's talking about there, to hide their hand. They have stolen intellectual property and done significant damage in every sector. Well, people would not deny that. North Korea, the Democratic Republic, has acted especially badly, largely unchecked for more than a decade. Its malicious behavior is growing more egregious. Well, WannaCry was indiscriminately reckless, and this is all editorializing. There's not a lot of evidence here. Stopping malicious behavior like this starts with accountability. It requires governments and businesses to cooperate to mitigate cyber risks and increase the cost to hackers. The U.S. Must lead this effort. Rally around the flag, boys. Rally around the flag. Rallying allies and responsible tech companies throughout the world to increase the security and reliance of the Internet. The change has started in the White House. DJ Trump has made his expectations clear. He's ordered modernization of information technology to enhance the security of the system we run on behalf of the American people. He has continued sanctions on Russian hackers, directed the most transparent and effective government effort in the world to find and share vulnerabilities in important software. We share almost all vulnerabilities we find with developers, allowing them to create patches. Even the American Civil Liberties Union praised him. We don't know about that. He asked that we improve our efforts to share intrusion evidence with hacker targets from individual Americans to big business and more to come. We've made the Internet safer. We've continued to hold accountable those who harm or threaten us, whether they're action alone or on behalf of criminal organizations or hostile nations. Malicious hackers belong in prison, and totalitarian governments should pay a price for their actions. The rest of us must redouble our efforts to improve our collective defense. When we must, the U.S. will act alone to impose costs and consequences on cyber malfeasance. This year, the administration of DJ Trump ordered the removal of Kaspersky's software from government systems, a company that could bring data back to Russia represents an unacceptable risk on a federal network. Major companies and retailers have followed suit. We brought charges against Iranian hackers who hacked several U.S. company computers, including HBO. These hackers traveled. We will arrest them and bring them to justice. We indicted the Russian hackers and the Canadian acting in concert. A few weeks ago, we charged 3 Chinese nationals with hacking there. Going forward, we must call out our bad behavior. Call out bad behavior, and that will include the corrupt regime in Tehran. And this is all editorializing here. The regime in Tehran any more corrupt than the regime in Washington. We call upon the private sector to increase its accountability in the cyber realm, by taking action that deny Democratic Republic of Korea and other bad actors the ability to launch reckless and destructive cyber attacks. As for the Democratic Republic of Korea, it continues to threaten America, Europe, and the rest of the world, and not just with nuclear aspirations. It's increasingly using cyber attacks to fund its reckless behavior. And the person here, Borser, is an assistant to DJ Trump for Homeland Security and Counterintelligence, Thomas P. Balzer. Anyway, he wrote this co-op piece. So we have to look at this from 2 standpoints. It is the politicalization of cyber attacks. When you talk about this, we'll look at the wannabe a little bit here, and then we'll go to the cyber site, and you'll hear a discussion by General Hayden and others about the reauthorization of the authority to intercept intelligence from American citizens if they are in cahoots or involved with quote-unquote foreign nationals. But first, let's get an idea of what is going on here. And one of the major leaders here is Kaspersky, the operation. Ransomware based on leaks from NSA-2 spread to dozens of countries. And this is from the TechCrunch. A ransomware attack seemed to be based on leaked NSA hacking tools is spreading like wildfire among unpatched Windows systems. Now, What the fellow that wrote in the Wall Street Journal did not talk about is the problem with software, proprietary software by people like Microsoft that is not properly done. And let me just get the date on this TechCrunch article here. It was in May the 12th. Nonetheless, Kopalski was in it. The lab analyzed put the number of infected computers at more than 45,000. And that was early, the vast majority. Now, this is where what he did not say. The vast majority were in the Russian Federation, Ukraine, India, and Taiwan followed. The ransomware code made it pretty clear that it was taking advantage of an exploit called Eternity Blue, published in May by shadow brokers, but particularly preempted by Microsoft in March. If anyone could keep these boxes up to date, we wouldn't have, if everyone did, we wouldn't have this problem, contagions here. Bitcoin wallets are reportedly used by ransomers showed numerous incoming transactions. They're worth about $250 to $500 there. So this is one example of leaked tools. Actually, they got the tools from the NSA. This was not, early reports suggested it was targeted at the National Health Service in the UK, but it's clear now that the attack is a global one with thousands of computers affected in the Russian Federation alone. And this is what he did not say here, what they want people to believe through the Wall Street Journal, that this is an attack by the Democratic Republic of Korea, that they did the ransomware attack, and they were the sole people responsible for it. Not true at all. They actually got the hacker tools and went to work. Now, again, from TechCrunch here, this is 3 hours ago, the U.S. government officially blamed the Democratic Republic of Korea for the WannaCry, the massive attack that disrupted more than 200,000 businesses from 35 countries. That's back there, writing in the New York Times. The Homeland Security Advisor, Thomas Boser, said for the first time that the Democratic Republic of Korea was behind it. It encrypted, rendered useless hundreds of thousands of machines. A little different version here than the version I just read to you. Researchers began to suspect the Democratic Republic of Korea in the aftermath of the attack on the Sony people, but that was disproved by Krebs and some other people. They felt that no, they were not responsible. And this is one of the problems here, that something can be blamed on one country that is politically there, and Kopalski itself, according to that article, has come under fire. And we go to cyber firm FireEye, claims to have attracted at least 5 attackers on the Bitcoin coin exchanges. It's no surprise that in cryptocurrencies, as an emerging asset class, are becoming a target of interest by a regime that operates like a criminal enterprise. And this is how they are set out here. And this is what happens. You get the types of did I say? Writing in the New York Times. Oh, okay, I see. Actually, we got that from the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, let's roll right along here, and we got the hacker tools. We've covered that before. Now, from Secure List, another publication here, talking about the global attacks with malware using the attacks encrypt files. And pick up $300 here, $300 there. Basically speaking, we can really go. Anyway, with Kopalski, they sent this out, and we'll get to the Kopalski security bulletin. We'll get to it in a minute. Overall statistics. We'll come back to it after we link up a couple of things here. We started this out with the Wall Street Journal article, and now we go to Mashable. According to Technica. Now, found evidence that a variant of the WannaCry shared code with a version of Cantapi, a backdoor used by the Lazarus group. It's possible that someone's impersonating the group, though Kapolsky claims this is improbable. Now, this is a big problem you also have with these various intelligence agencies, because they can impersonate, say, the Lazarus group here. Kapolsky took a good look at the Lazarus group's activities and posted its finding. That was in April. The group appears to be highly sophisticated and very active in a process by Kapolsky, who has now been banned by the U.S. government in a twist there. And the WannaCry and the Lazarus group, the missing link. This is back in May, a few hours there. Nell Mehta, a researcher at Google, that's MEHTA, a researcher there, published some hashtags here, and we covered this on an open source report. I know about it, but what is Lazarus? He wrote that the Lazarus group extensively presented together with our colleagues from SWIFT and at the Kapolsky lab. Is this possible? This is a false flag. In theory, everything is possible, considering the 2015 backdoor code that had been copied by the WannaCry samples from February of 2017. However, the code appears to have been removed from the latest version. The February 2017 sample appears to be a very early variant of the WannaCry encrypted. We believe a false flag, although possible, is improbable, but it could be possible. In other words, it could be sent out by some particular regime, and we'll get to that in a minute here. The similarities between Cantupi and Lazarus Group, etc. Is the DPRK behind it? Difficult to say. And again, they show some remarkable stuff here. We looked at Mr. Suchet from Kame Technology. We followed him, and some of this came as a result of some of his work. Period. Now, to Kapolsky's lab, they are taking the U.S. government to court over the software ban, claiming that they lack a due process. They sent an open letter relating to Department of Homeland Security's Operation Directive. Kapolsky is claiming the U.S. government violated Administrative Procedures Act and the Fifth Amendment. They are Massachusetts company, ordered civilian agencies to remove Kapolsky's lab from their computers within 90 days via the directive. The process is ongoing for some time. The ban was then codified into law when D.J. Trump signed the Defense Authorization Act. Over several months, multiple reports by various people, including the Wall Street Journal, which we just referred to, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Cyber Snoop, and others documented Kapolsky's relation to the Kremlin, citing unnamed former intelligence officers. In other words, when you get into unnamed ones there, you know what's going on there. Some of the same ones out there. So they did file this in district court. And the conclusion here, in taking the action, Kapolsky Labs hopes to protect its rights under the Constitution and federal law. The binding directive 1701 was the directive here. Now let's get. This is called a Cyber Brief. You'll hear a presentation here. But let's get to actually what caused some of this. Tehran posed an increased cyber threat to the U.S. in light of the Trump administration allegations that Iran is violating the UN Security Resolution, dismissively referred to as kiddies for their original lack of sophistication, are bolstering their cyber warfare capabilities, so they claim, as a part of their rivalry with Saudi Arabia. Anyway, since 2011, this is how all this started. Iran has established itself, now this is pure propaganda, as a prominent aggressor in a cyber space, along with China, Russia, and the Democratic Republic of Korea, revolving from a mere website defacement and crude censorship domestically in the 2000s. Iran has become, and why had they become a player? Well, here's why. They at least put this out. Iran wasn't pursuing a cyber capability with much urgency, experts say, until it was revealed in 2010 that a joint U.S.-Israeli operation called Stuxnet Worm sabotaged nuclear centrifuges in Iran as the first known instance of viral intrusion, resulting in a physical effort. The operation demonstrated the potential effectiveness of such an attack and had informed much of Iran's cyber operation since. Now, what they didn't say and what Hayden and company had not said, you have to understand the history of the NSA formed in 1952, that it has been in collusion with AT&T, the international telephone companies, and the British companies, because Britain has all these cables, so they ruled the roost. They were listening to phone calls. It's on the old analog system, and it graduated up to the digital system. But what has happened now with the interconnected internet, there are many more countries, and most of the internet now, at one time it was primarily an American situation, and in Europe, in the UK, and other European nations. But now there are more internet users in China than there are people in the United States, for one. And moving on, and Europe thrown in there. And it's emerging in other places across Asia, across various African countries, as they come very slowly to more maturity, and you will have more people. But you still have some of these companies with their products with backdoors. Example would be Microsoft. As countries advance, you'll see these many of these American companies' products disappearing. Microsoft in some countries has been replaced by Linux. We had a situation in, I believe, in Austria, where they had replaced Microsoft with Linux. Now a right-wing government has brought it back. But this is a trend back and forth. Eventually what is happening, we had here at Cranston, because we are doing this report with our open source report, which it comes from us at Cranston. We're doing this and on also as on the Bostonred network and WRN radio, and we'll also do it on the political report. Bostonred, since it is sandwiched with political intrigue and whatever else you want to call it. But anyway, this goes back to Stuxnet, and Stuxnet was used by the Israelis, and this has been going on for a very, very long time in other countries. And this also goes to this Russian so-called election mania there. They use the same things on the Russian Federation. They use it in Ukraine. And what is starting to happen now, and this is in its elementary stage, that knowledge is becoming more democratic. So more people in the world are getting these capabilities. And this is why you're talking about the reauthorization here of this act, and you'll hear about it, the reauthorization of 702. That was originally started under G.W. Bush, and it extended on Barack Obama administration. But again, this is very problematic. Iran has often conducted disruptive cyber operations loosely in a response to action taken by others. Now,